Hello everyone. In this video, we are going to see how to enforce bearer token implementation for your Active Directory authentication on AgilePoint portal and server. By default, when a user logs into AgilePoint portal with Active Directory authentication, AgilePoint portal uses basic authentication mechanism to call AgilePoint Server API. In basic HTTP authentication, a request contains an authorization header where credentials are passed as base64 encoded string of user ID and password joined by a colon. Basic authentication is specified in RFC 7617 spec and is an industry standard. Though basic authentication headers are secured using SSL certificate and is, as I said, it is used as an industry standard by a lot of systems. If you don't want to use basic authentication, AgilePoint always supported a wide range of different authentication providers such as the Windows Azure Active Directory, ADFS, Okta, Salesforce, Identity Server 4, Ping Federate, etc., which not only uses a hard to crack bearer token, but also provides you single sign-on. However, still, there might be customers who want to use Active Directory authentication, but at the same time want to disable the basic authentication and use something which is more encrypted. So starting 7.0 software update 2 release, you can configure AgilePoint portal to use Active Directory authentication to log in using bearer token instead of basic authentication. So let's see how that is implemented. Now before I do that, I'm going to show you a fresh installation where it is currently using basic authentication. If I go to my portal, now typically you would HTTPS protected, you will apply an SSL certificate. It's on my local machine, so I didn't apply the certificate here, but typically you would have it. Now if you do an F12 and open browser developer tool and look at the cookie, you can see right now the cookie is using basic authentication with a base64 encoded string. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to change that behavior. So now starting 7.0 software update 2, AgilePoint has provided an mechanism which has been created where it will generate an encrypted JSON web token which can be sent in the header instead of the user credentials. In order to set these up, you would go to first portalweb.config file. So typically you find the portalweb.config and C drive, program files, AgilePoint, AgilePoint web application, AgilePoint portal, and then there is a file called web.config. There are two settings which are important over here. One is the portal URL. Just copy it. It's going to be there in your portal, but just make a copy of this value. And you would have a switch called use jot token. Just set it to true. By default, as I said, it is false for backward compatibility purpose. You said portal start using jot token. Now at the same time on the AgilePoint server side, now AgilePoint server config file is found under AgilePoint install location, AgilePoint server instance, bin, and the ascendant.agilepoint.wcf service exe.config file. In this, go ahead and add couple of keys. The first key would be your this key, and this would have a value of a URL which is same as the URL which was specified in the portal web.config. Remember I mentioned we have to copy that value, the portal URL, this one. So copy that value over here. Now this can be multiple URLs. You can have a semicolon delimited list. I'll show you where it comes in handy later on. And then you will provide your signing key. Now I can put a text string kind of a thing over here, which I can use to sign it. I'm using a super secure one over here called this is a secret key, but you can have your own phrase. Or if you want to do a certificate based signing, you can create a certificate, register it on the machine and put the certificate name over here instead. So once you have this, so I'm going to use with the phrase based signing key over here. Once you have it, you need to restart the AgilePoint server. So go to the services panel and restart the AgilePoint server for this to pick up. Okay, now that my server has started, I'm going to go and open another private window of instance, go to my portal, and log in again. To an F12 to open the browser tool and look at the contents of the cookie. Now, as you can see, it has converted this into a JOT token. If I copy this JOT token over and go to any kind of sniffing tool, or so let's go to jot.io and try to read the contents of it. All it gives me is what is my logged in username and what's the token expiry time. It doesn't give me any information about the user. So it makes it secure this way. So that was about how to set it up on the AgilePoint portal and AgilePoint server. Now remember, I mentioned that this can be a semicolon delimited string. Now I imagine that if you are using SharePoint on premises with AgilePoint, you can secure that as well. That uses basic authentication by default. This is not applicable for Office 365 because Office 365 uses Windows Azure Active Directory. So you can do a semicolon delimited list. Now I don't have SharePoint on this machine, but I can tell you that so these values are in documentation. All you would do is an AgilePoint configuration list, create two keys. One would be a flag which tells you yes, use the ADJOT token to true. By default it is false, and the audience URL. Now once you have set the audience URI, which would be probably your SharePoint site collection URI, that is what you would put over here, that I allow this site to obtain a bearer token. So you can put a semicolon delimited list. That's optional, but you can secure the communication between your SharePoint and AgilePoint using a JOT token, a JSON Web Token. Now lastly, if I go to my portal, go to settings. In one of my other videos, I covered that you can now create a QR code for configuring your mobile apps. And if you scroll down and select Active Directory over here, see that we have provided the same feature over here as well. You can turn the bearer token on, use bearer token on, and provide your any audience URI which would be specified. So when mobile app connects to AgilePoint server using Active Directory authentication, that too would be using a JOT token instead of or a bearer token instead of basic authentication. Now this is optional. If you forgot to do this or make changes in SharePoint, that can still continue to work in basic if you wanted, because the AgilePoint server can accept both basic as well as a bearer token. So using this feature, you can mark your Active Directory authentication more secure. Thanks a lot for your time.